we're continuing our learning. Part one of our video, we were continuing to learn the Avinu Malkeinu prayers. Next week, we will continue to learn about fasting, the 3 weeks between these two biblical fasts, and the 9th of Av. Also, we will be learning about what Yeshua said in regard to fasting, which is very different from the traditional way. Both are wonderful, both are applicable, so we'll look forward to doing that. But before we part, I'd like to share a little from the temple lessons that I'm taking with Rabbi Chaim Richman. And I thought it was appropriate because this is all about the destruction of the temple and us mourning that and what that means as far as connecting to the idea of parts of our lives being destroyed. How can we not live another day without rebuilding our lives and the Holy Temple? So this week, he emphasized the importance of understanding what we are lacking without the Holy Temple. God doesn't change. His word doesn't change. Thus, when he said that his heart is forever toward that place in Jerusalem, he means it. And we can imitate this attention, which is one reason why some turn toward Jerusalem eastward when they pray. On the eastern wall of my home, there's a framed poster of the Kotel, the western wall, which are the last remnants of the Holy Temple's outer structure. Rabbi Richman explained that through Jerusalem flow all prayers. He used an illustration, a Sabbath table, where everyone has their cell phones out. The father is sitting right beside his son, but instead of putting down the screen and looking at his father and speaking to him, he texts him. So it's like he's here and we're texting him. This is what it's like without the Holy Temple, Chaim Richman says. Now, obviously, we know that our way of communication is Yeshua taking our prayers to the Father as incense. But as we discussed in the first part of this class, and we have on many occasions, the Holy Temple plays a very vital and central role when Messiah returns and is king, ruling and reigning from there. Everything will be valid, everything will be applicable, and it will be very fascinating to see how he puts all that together. So at any rate, he goes on to explain, for this age of distraction and immediate gratification, ordering luxuries and goodies at the click of a button, or in a few short days it shows up magically at your doorstep. The most excruciating challenge of this generation is not to fall into complacency. When we think about this period of semi-mourning, because of these historical events with profound spiritual ramifications, we must realize that we are contrasting the lack of joy, period. So today we cannot fathom the joy that surrounded the temple service. Too often we think about the animals, the blood, the solemnity and weight of what takes place there. Because, unfortunately, the Torah has been misconstrued over time as being a burden and something which holds us back from realizing grace and freedom in Hashem, when the reality is completely the opposite. God called all of his people, the heads of the households, yet it is documented that whole towns would be vacant, and Hashem would safeguard their belongings while they traveled to the holy city, and that nothing was stolen or disrupted upon their return. So he called his people to that place 3 times a year to check in with him and to visit, so to speak. And there's all kinds of reasons that each feast was called to do and why what they mean to us today. So imagine it like a huge party, a parade, a road trip with your best friends and family members, going up to Jerusalem to experience the truest joy, which is closeness with Hashem. Today, Rabbi Chaim Richman asks, what do we know of joy? What is the true reward in life? Reward is closeness with Hashem. And now Rebecca's going to read for us Vayikra, which is the book of Leviticus, and she's going to read 23, verse 36 through 39, and then parts of 40 and 41, please.
Leviticus 23:37. These are the appointed times of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as holy convocations to present offerings by fire to the Lord, burnt offerings and grain offerings, sacrifices and drink offerings, each day's matter on its own day, besides those of the Sabbath of the Lord, and besides your gifts, and besides all your votive and freewill offerings, which you give to the Lord. You shall celebrate the feast of the Lord, and you shall rejoice before the Lord. You shall thus celebrate it as a feast to the Lord.
Okay, so the mourning customs in Judaism and during these fasts, or our practice of them when we fast on these special dates, is not for the sake of suffering or deprivation. Refraining from pleasure is not to go without, but to be so totally focused that this is not a life. This is not the way we're supposed to live. To remember what is lacking without the temple and its service, and how very much this fits into the end of days plan of Hashem. And so in his lesson, he was just really explaining how everything really went back to the temple. Their whole livelihood, all of their agriculture, all of their meetings, all of his sacred occasions, all of their judicial system, everything went back to that place and that service. So for us to be so disconnected from it, it's just so backwards to what God's plan was. And when you read the Bible, really the whole entire Bible, including the apostolic scriptures, also known as the New Testament, absolutely centers around the Holy Temple still. You see it in Acts, you see it in Yeshua's life and ministry. It's the same throughout. Almost unheard of in most circles, certainly not outside of Israel, is what he submitted, is what is known as, it's called the Midnight Lament, literally the Midnight Rectification, or Tikkun Chatzot. It's a service of prayer performed over the ages by certain pious individuals. They arise at exact midnight, which is taught to be a time of tremendous heavenly compassion and grace. They sit on the floor with sackcloth and ashes and lament for the destruction of the Holy Temple. And apparently this is something that happens in a very small circle every single night. And they're mourning for the destruction of the temple. So Rabbi Richman explained that this is not something someone sets out to do or to be, or to feel, more holy, or like some special spiritual loftiness. No, the person who does this, the people who have done this midnight lament, they do not have to set an alarm clock. The person who gets up and does this can't sleep. He's being woken up. He can't sleep because the Shekhinah, the divine indwelling presence of God, is in exile. I don't know about you, but I have had a very difficult time focusing on certain things because of the events that are taking place daily in this nation. I can't sleep sometimes because my mind and my heart are churning around and around over the devastation we are witnessing in this generation in America. I remember not too long ago, we were discussing the very real concept of tribulation being experienced for Christians in Asia, the Middle Eastern lands, Iran, and such. We mused, we're so blessed. In America, we have no real concept of tribulation. Well, I believe that where we sit here today, we've got a little better grasp on the truth that tribulation has indeed reached our shores. When families can't go to a fast food joint to pick up dinner without their child becoming a corpse on the ride home, we've reached a tribulation state. We can't be settled. We can't go on as if life is normal. So I want to now share with you something amazing. But first, let us read Tehillim, Psalms 30. And this is a psalm. It's a song at the dedication of the house. That means the temple of Hashem. It's a psalm by David. And Rebecca's going to read Psalm 30 for us, please.
Psalm 30. I will extol you, O Lord, for you have lifted me up, and have not let my enemies rejoice over me. O Lord my God, I cried to you for help, and you healed me. O Lord, you have brought up my soul from Sheol. You have kept me alive, that I would not go down into the pit. Sing praise to the Lord, you his godly ones, and give thanks to his holy name. For his anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may last for the night, but a shout of joy comes in the morning. Now as for me, I said in my prosperity, I will never be moved. O Lord, by your favor, you have made my mountain to stand strong. You hid your face, I was dismayed. To you, O Lord, I called, and to the Lord I made supplication. What profit is there in my blood if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it declare your faithfulness? Hear, O Lord, and be gracious to me. O Lord, be my helper. You have turned for me my mourning into dancing. You have loosed my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, that my soul may sing praise to you and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give thanks to you forever.
Amen. So, sometimes when I write these down, they're in a different translation than my Tanakh, and so I forget that I have the tunes to some of them to sing. So this one verse 4 through 5, I have the nigun, the song for us. I'll just sing that for us. Sing to Hashem, his devout ones, and give praise to his holy name. For his anger endures but a moment. Life results from his favor. In the evening one lies down weeping, with the dawn a cry of joy. So here is a lesson David teaches us about life. In this psalm, as within his actual life, which we read about in the Bible, David goes up and he goes down. In the evening I lie down weeping, in the dawn a cry of joy. This is more than just a beautiful poem. David is painting here for us the account of the human experience, the ups and the downs of life. Rabbi Richmond shares that this word, drawn me up, he said this word doesn't exist. He made it up, that David made it up. Dilitani, with the root dalet, lamed, yud, which means, so the root of the word means a bucket. So he's painting this picture of being lowered down in a bucket, like from a rope, and a poet being faithful to his actual word would have to translate it as, you have bucketed me. So in other words, just like a well, you would lower it down, you would bring it back up. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Amazing. And this is the song for the inauguration of the temple. There is nothing about marble pillars or animals being offered. This is what it is about, the human experience. And then I come to the temple and I get a clarification of my name, who I am, of the potential for my life, because I was created in the divine image. It's so sullied by my inability to sort it out. But when I come to the temple, I'm back on track. I'm alive. What is the joy that is felt from here? What is it? The Shekinah, the indwelling physical. You can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it almost. Being close to Hashem. The temple and its services, they're about life. To visually, with all your senses, sound, the Levite singing, touch, all the touch and sensory, and actually the offerer was the one doing the slaughtering, so it's supposed to be up close and personal. Smell, the smell of roasting lamb if you've ever smelled it, or the incense. Taste, you're partaking of the peace offerings or the wine. Your whole physicality, to distance yourself from the illusion of death. That's why there was this whole sense of coming into contact with death. You become ritually impure and you can't approach the Holy Temple, because the Holy Temple is all about life. That's the message that has been mistranslated over time. What does the Holy Temple have to do with the human experience? Everything, everything. How good is the thing in its proper time? Rebecca, if you'll read Tehillim, Psalms 145, 14 through 18 for us, please.
Psalm 145. The Lord sustains all who fall and raises up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food in due time. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his deeds. The Lord is near to all who call upon him in truth.
The definition, the defining purpose for our fasting and prayer is to be sensitive to the moment, to know that there is a time for mourning and a time for joy, to believe in the fact that Hashem will have transformed my lament into dancing. So this is the point at which we get up off the floor from our mourning. The bucket being drawn back upwards with his powerful hands. May it be that the bucket be the vessel we have prepared for him to fill, that when he lifts us back up, we are surrounded by the life-giving water that will nourish us and all those whom we share it with. Have a wonderful, blessed Sabbath. May you feel closeness, contentment, and sensitivity to that inner alarm clock which calls upon us to care, waking us up from slumber to supplicate and mourn, and then go out into the world and make use of our great potential. No more waiting. And with that, I'll have Rebecca read us Psalm Tehillim 119, 57 through 64.
Psalm 119:57. The Lord is my portion. I have promised to keep your words. I sought your favor with all my heart. Be gracious to me according to your word. I considered my ways and turned my feet to your testimonies. I hastened and did not delay to keep your commandments. The cords of the wicked have encircled me, but I have not forgotten your Torah. At midnight I shall rise to give thanks to you, because your righteous ordinances. I am a companion of all those who fear you, and of those who keep your precepts. The earth is full of your loving kindness, O Lord. Teach me your statutes.
Amen and Shabbat Shalom.